Welcome to the Holistic Nootropics podcast. My name is Eric. With me today is the great Kate Mahoney. Kate, thank you for joining me today on the Holistic Nootropics podcast.
I'm excited to be here, Eric.
I'm excited to have you. The reason I wanted to have you on the podcast is really as far as supplementation goes. As far as I'm concerned, you are the Jedi. You know more about supplements than anyone else I know, and it's not just about, I really think, knowing about supplements, but it's really about how to take supplements and finding the differences. Because what I see happen with supplements and all these different products is it's really a cash cow, right? It's a $40 billion, maybe even more than that. I've seen numbers upwards around $100 billion industry. And I'm willing to bet that at least 95% of that is just peed away into the toilet. So
yeah, 95% of it is pretty much crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not even about peeing it into the toilet. It's about the quality of the majority of what's on the market is so low that it is a waste of people's money. And that's really frustrating to me as a supplement expert. And so that's part of why my goal is to help inform people to make empowered choices.
Right. And that's why I wanted to bring you on, because, you know, in the nootropics world, especially, we're telling people a lot of what to take. We're telling people, hey, take oxiracetam for energy, or take, rhodiola, for energy, or take L-theanine to wind you down. And for me, I study this stuff obsessively, and it's confusing to somebody who doesn't know this stuff. I mean, it's a lot of direction that in the end just doesn't take you anywhere. It kind of keeps you stuck where you are. And I see people just so frustrated, and what it does is it makes people lose faith in supplements.
Yeah, well, I think you really hit a nail on a head when you were talking about how it doesn't take you anywhere. It gets people really frustrated with supplements, because the truth is there is no one supplement that is going to work right for everybody. I mean, we're all bio-individual. We have our own unique needs. So really what you need to find is, number one, a supplement that is high quality and is actually going to be effective. And number two, it has to be something that works with your body and be compatible with you.
Right. And I think one of the best examples of this is vitamin C, because vitamin C is all the rage. And it's crazy, to see people, when they think about vitamin C, they go to the store, they get Emergen-C, right? Or they go and they get a whole bunch of these vitamin C supplements from Walgreens or Costco.
The Acerola cherry chewable tablets.
Yeah. I've had a dark run with those. But I mean, people look at something like vitamin C and they look at it like, well, if I get sick, I'm just going to take vitamin C and everything's going to be better. And there's so much more to the story.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, I remember when I started my supplement education. I think this was, oh my gosh, it was almost 15 years ago now, Eric. I don't understand where the time goes, but it goes. So I started my supplement education, and that's where I found out that all ascorbic acid on the market is made from fermenting corn dextrose. It is not made or derived from where you think it might be from, like citrus fruits like oranges and lemons and limes. No, it is literally made from fermenting corn dextrose. And if you care about things like the herbicides or pesticides, or even whether or not things are genetically modified, if you look up on the USDA website, you will find that 89% of the corn that is made here in the United States at this point is GMO. And that is with some of it is spliced with the Bt toxin, others is spliced so that it is Roundup resistant or glyphosate resistant. And that means that they can use as much glyphosate on the product as they want to and not kill it. So really, the other thing to keep in mind about ascorbic acid is when you do the research, you find that there is evidence that the ascorbic acid doesn't actually contain the synergistic phytonutrients to make the vitamin C active in the body the way that it needs to actually be providing the support. There is evidence of this from way back, from when they were actually studying ascorbic acid. And it showed that eating a piece of citrus fruit, like an orange or a lemon or a lime or something like that, would be more effective and beneficial for scurvy than taking ascorbic acid.
Well, that's like I've read, you know, the way they discovered why vitamin C actually helps specifically scurvy is because on these long boat rides across the Atlantic Ocean, they weren't boat rides, they were like ships, you know, shipping stuff, you know. It wasn't
Yeah.
like they were like, hey, let's catch a boat ride across the Atlantic Ocean, maybe one up, maybe one up.
They
But
were the planes of the day.
right, but
Yes.
yeah, exactly. They found that just like sucking on limes or something, like the
Yeah.
guys, the people who sucked on the limes, and I might be totally butchering this story, but it's something along the lines of the guys who sucked on the limes didn't get this crippling illness
Mhm.
called scurvy,
Yeah.
and the people who didn't would get it. And
Yeah.
so, you know, so scientists got together and they said, okay, well, it must be this vitamin C thing. It works so magically. And what, 200, 300 years later, now we're somehow distilling that from corn, and not the vitamin C, because the vitamin C molecule is like a big thing, right? We're taking one part of that, which is the ascorbic acid. We're
Mhm.
creating it from GMO corn, which has all of this glyphosate and all of these non-natural, you know, elements to it, and we're putting that in a package and saying this is going to keep you healthy and this is going to keep you immune from diseases or
Yeah, well,
viruses.
you definitely got a lot of the points exactly right, having to do with the evolution of things. Now, the tricky thing, though, is that vitamin C technically, at this point and for decades now, has been considered ascorbic acid because the scientist, and I forget his name right now, but the scientist who discovered ascorbic acid is the one who said, this is it. This right here is vitamin C. Now, there are other scientists who have done research since that happened that have, like I spoke about a few minutes ago, found that just the ascorbic acid by itself does not do what it needs to. You actually have to have the synergistic components that are naturally present in food. For example, one of the synergistic components that is most necessary to make ascorbic acid active in the body is actually the bioflavonoids. So if you don't have the bioflavonoids, you're not going to be able to get much out of that ascorbic acid. And quite frankly, I would rather not be taking fermented corn dextrose. Just give me a piece of food.
Right.
I mean, really.
But are there vitamin C supplements out there that are higher quality than just like these just straight up, you know, corn dextrose ascorbic
Yeah.
acid powders?
Yeah, they definitely are. And it's not what most people think, because a lot of people think that like buffered vitamin C or sodium ascorbate or magnesium ascorbate or calcium ascorbate, that, you know, that is more bioavailable vitamin C. I am here to break the news to you. No, it is not. All they have done is they have taken ascorbic acid and they have formed a molecular bond with a mineral. And to be perfectly blunt, is that mineral even bioavailable? Who knows? They usually use the super cheap stuff. So I personally prefer to use supplements that are actually derived from food. And the reason why is because when those nutrients are derived from food, they have all the synergistic nutrients and phytonutrients that work together to make sure that they are bioactive, bioavailable, and really effective in the body, and therefore worth your money. So one of the things that I like to say is, okay, a lot of people complain about price point. They're like, oh my gosh, but the stuff derived from food is like 3 times more expensive than this bottle of vitamin C. And look, it's like this tiny little bottle versus this huge bottle that I'm getting. My point is, if you are wasting your money on more product that is not effective, rather than spending your money on less of a product that is effective, it kind of equals out and it balances out, because the food derived products, you actually need less of it because it legitimately works. It has all the things that you need. So in the end, it balances out.
So if I'm just a person and I want to get vitamin C and I want the vitamin C that you're talking about, what am I looking for?
So you are specifically looking for something that is food derived. So if you go to a store, the people who work there, if they know their stuff, they should know what you're talking about when you say, I want a food derived nutrient. And they should even theoretically know their stuff if you say, I want it from organically grown food derived nutrients. Now, not everyone at these stores is going to be in the know. Some people are going to be greener than others, let's say, right? So if the person that you're talking to doesn't know, then say, hey, do you have anyone who specializes in this topic here that I can talk to be able to find what I'm looking for? And there are certain brands that really do that. I'm someone who, I don't like to bad talk any brands, and I also don't want to seem like I'm just talking up one particular brand because I'm not affiliated with any brands. But what I can tell you is that they are out there. One of my personal favorite brands, and this is just me saying personally, I have no affiliation with this brand at all, but you may have heard me, if you've heard me speak before on other podcasts, mention it, is Mega Foods, because their products are all food grown or food derived, and they're really bioavailable. They are super clean. They actually cultivate relationships with their farmers. They test all of their raw material when it comes in. I mean, they cover all the bases. So that's part of the reason why I really love their products in general. Does that mean they're the only brand that I use? No, I literally will source the best of whatever something is from different brands. So that's just an example of one company that makes really good vitamin C.
So it's important to make sure vitamin C, vitamin E, whatever vitamin you're taking, that it actually comes from a food source, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. You want it to be bioavailable. And what that means is it's effective. When one of the things to consider about most of the nutrients that are in supplements is that they're not actually nutrients. They are synthetic and artificial and man-made in a lab. And a lot of them are missing certain components from the way that it is found in nature. So when we take those nutrients and those supplements, our body is sitting there going, oh, what is this? I don't know what to do with it. And then our body is like, well, it kind of looks like it might be close to this. So maybe we should try to use it like that. And so your body spends all this cellular energy to like try to make this artificial synthetic thing become more what it should be, so that the body can use it because it needs that nutrient, right? But the truth is it can only do that with, on average, about 2 to 3% of those synthetic artificial nutrients, and the rest of it becomes a toxic burden because it's unusable, and therefore your body has to process it to excrete it and remove it from the body, whether through the bladder or through the bowels. Your organs are having to get rid of anything that it can't use, and that can be a burden too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like the interesting thing to me about so many of these supplements is when you ask somebody, I mean, first of all, I think when people buy supplements, they don't even look at the back label, because if the front label says it's vitamin C, they go, well, the back label is probably
Yeah.
just going to say vitamin C. So what do I got to look at
Yeah.
that thing for? But then when you look at the back label,
Mm-hmm.
you see the whole world of other stuff that's in that supplement. And people are like, I mean, dioxide, red 4, yellow 8. What's wrong with that stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Because you just like when you're reading a label of a food product, you're not just looking at the nutrition facts, you're looking at the actual ingredients, and you're figuring out, do I even recognize what these are? Do I know what these are? Do I understand what it's derived from? And what you touched on is something that is really big in the supplement industry. And I don't know if you want to get into this or not right now, Eric. If you don't, that's fine. We can just shelf it.
If it's scandalous, I want to get into it.
Well, I don't know how scandalous it is, but it plays a big role in the quality of supplements, and that is excipients. Because if you look at a supplement label, it will say supplement facts and it will list all of the nutrients, but then all the way down at the bottom in this little tiny print, it will say other ingredients. And that is where you will find the excipients.
So what is an excipient? What does that mean? What is the difference between an excipient and, I guess, an ingredient?
So an excipient is what's known as an inactive ingredient. Now, some excipients are actually necessary. So let's give an example of that, because I want to start out on like a good, you know, introduction or discovery of where this can actually be necessary and beneficial. So if you look at a bottle of tincture or extract, they literally need to use what is known as a carrier. That is a type of excipient in order to extract the active constituents from an herb. And typically they'll use things like alcohol or glycerin. And this is a completely different topic on its own, but you have to be really careful about the sourcing of that glycerin and of that alcohol, because it can be very poor quality. That's all I'm going to say. So that is an example of when a company is using excipients and it's actually necessary. Now, the most common way that excipients are used in supplements is because a lot of supplement companies are in this game for profit. I mean, they want to make money. So they are manufacturing things as quickly as possible. That means that they have to push their product through the machines as fast as possible. And in order to do that, you have to add excipients, because you need to make the raw material that you're pushing through slippery so that it doesn't clog up the machine. So those are known as lubricants or flow agents. You also have to make sure that when you're pressing the product into a tablet, that it sticks to itself, right? So that's another excipient that a lot of companies add. I mean, there's literally probably, if I'm remembering from the supplement course that I have for functional practitioners, on the list of excipients that I share with them, I think there's a list of about between 15 and 20 different excipient categories. And that's just the categories of excipients. That doesn't even get into what ingredients can be used. But the typical ingredients in excipients are going to be derived from nightshades like potatoes, derived from grains like wheat, derived from corn or derived from soy. Like those are the 4 most common places that excipients are going to be coming from. And let's get back to, how many people react to wheat? How
Right.
many people react to nightshades? So a lot of people, it's like they'll take supplements and they'll think that they are reacting to the supplement or the nutrients, but in reality, they're actually reacting to, number one, what those artificial synthetic nutrients are made from in a lab, or number 2, the excipients.
Right. Especially if you're, I mean, God forbid, celiac or have any kind of gluten or wheat sensitivity.
Yeah.
I mean, even just like a
Yep.
micro little like measurement, a little bit of it
Yeah.
hidden in a supplement
Yeah.
will set you off.
Yeah.
And
And it's not even necessarily about the gluten itself when it comes to celiacs. It oftentimes has to do with all grains. And there are certain things that for celiacs are cross-reactive, like corn. Corn is cross-reactive for celiac. So if you're celiac, don't be surprised if you typically have a bad reaction to any of the supplements on the market that are made synthetically, that are artificial.
yeah, and I know a lot of people who are gluten sensitive, when they start getting those gluten reactions, they put on the Inspector Gadget hat and they start looking back on, okay, where did I get glutened? Where did this glutening come from? And I would be willing to bet most of them don't even look at their supplements. They
Yeah.
go, oh, my multivitamin, there's no way.
Yeah.
That keeps me healthy. It had to have been some gluten-free thing that I had, but had
Yep.
gluten in it. But it
Yep.
could be the supplement.
Yeah. And it's the same thing for people who who react to nightshades or to soy. They don't even think to look at their friggin' supplements.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys, corn is the number 1 raw material used to make synthetic and artificial nutrients, and soy is number 2. Because whatever corn cannot make, soy can, because they have those different profiles. And oftentimes they'll either use one or the other or combine aspects from both. And that is what most synthetic nutrients are made from, is corn and soy.
That's so scary. I mean, but it makes sense because it's like, again, the amount of supplements that are sold. I mean, you can go to most people's houses and look in there. They have a supplement cabinet and filled with supplements, and they're not feeling well a lot. They're dealing with some chronic condition, and they're like, well, I got all of these supplements I take. So, I mean, I don't know, is it doing anything? And
and they think they're something good for themselves.
Right. Yeah, that to me, that's the part about this industry that really drives me crazy, because if you run a supplement company, and you've been around plenty of companies who run, and you've probably seen the good and the bad.
Yep.
If you run a supplement company, you know your supply chain, you know your manufacturing, you know how your stuff is shipped. And when you're not holding yourself to the highest standard, I just don't know how you sleep with yourself at night.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
I know. I have to say that some of the things that drive me the most crazy in this industry is when I listen to people who work for a company and all they do is sing the praises of that company. And they do things like justify and rationalize their high use of excipients that really you don't need to have. Because here's the thing. I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that I don't necessarily only source from one company. I will source the best product that I can from different companies. And that's because companies will specialize in different products. So for myself, what I am looking for is the highest quality and the most effective of any particular supplement or nutrient. So that means that when a company is specializing in producing something, they are literally going to have specialized manufacturing practices to ensure that, number one, the nutrients do not get destroyed or damaged in the manufacturing of that supplement, because that's one of the things that happens too, is a lot of times when the supplements are being made and they're going through the manufacturing process, light, heat, and oxygen, any exposure can damage those nutrients. So for the companies that specialize in manufacturing, they make sure that the nutrients are not exposed to light. They do things to make sure that the heat remains below a certain level, and they also make sure that the nutrients don't get oxidized. And they have specialized equipment to make sure that they need to use little to no excipients at all. But there are these companies who like to, rationalize and justify that excipients, they're fine, they won't hurt you. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. So magnesium stearate, it is a excipient that you will typically find in, I'm not going to say most or all supplements because that is not true. It is something that you will find in the larger supplement companies that are manufacturing a lot of products. It is one of the ones that is typical and common. Magnesium stearate has an MSDS sheet. If you look it up, you will find that there are concerns about magnesium stearate that they want the public and consumers to be aware of. So if you are taking something that has, now the companies who use excipients in their products, they will literally justify, but you're taking such a small amount. If you're taking that small amount every day for years, what is it doing to the body, guys? Right. I mean, I'm sorry, but this is unethical practices. And to be blunt, it pisses me off. Stop rationalizing and justifying your use of unnecessary ingredients just because profit is what's most important to you.
Right.
So I'm very passionate about this.
I see that. Good.
Really mad.
I was hoping to set you off. This is what I'm talking about. The script is out the window. We're rocking it now. We got the furrow of the eyebrow. You got some sweat on your forehead. You can tell Kate's pissed. I love it. This is what I want. You got these other health podcasts like, so tell me about it. No, I want to see some real emotion. But it's so true. And I have to ask you about a specific nutrient that makes me think of, that I'm thinking about as you say that. But before I do, just remember fish oil. But I want to come back to that.
Oh no! You're opening that can of sardines.
I'm opening. Okay, this was going to be a quick 45-minute interview. I think we're doing a Joe Rogan 3 hours now.
Okay.
But before I lose my train of thought on that, I do want to stick with what you're saying and ask you specifically about, like, as a consumer, what am I looking for to make sure I'm getting high quality? Because you see these labels on the like these certification labels where it's like, GMP, and it's, third-party testing. And then there's like these different certificates that supplement companies can get. And, like as a consumer, if you do your research, even if you're like an astute consumer, and this is where the Tom J. fuckery of the supplement industry really comes in, where you go to their website and you're like, look, I understand health. I know all this stuff. I'm going to look for a supplement that's high quality. And then you go to the website and it's like this certification and that certification, and it's a GMP facility and all this stuff, and it could still be garbage, right?
Yeah.
So what are those certificates? What do they mean? And what is the gold standard that you're looking for?
Okay. So this is my main piece of advice. Look for supplements with little to no excipients. So turn over that bottle, and below the supplement facts, you're going to be looking at the other ingredients or inactive ingredients, and you want as few as possible or even none. And they exist. There are companies that literally exist with no excipients. It is something that they pride themselves on. So there are going to be the supplement companies that will try to feed you the bullshit that excipients are fine and they're in such minute amounts and it's okay, and There are even some people that I've heard go so far as to say, well, producing supplements without excipients is completely unreasonable. And if you look at the companies that individuals like that have worked for, you can tell that they're just towing the line. So I am coming to you as a supplement expert who literally has no affiliation with any of these companies. All that I've done is I received 5 years of extensive education about the supplement industry, and I am giving it to you straight. And I am telling you that that is a rationalized line that those companies who are not producing the high quality products are using to try to fool consumers and make them feel better about their products. But it is possible to make supplements with little to no excipients. There are companies out there. So just turn over the label and look.
But but what about like testing and certificates and things like that? You know, because you get these again, like what is GMP? Because you see that on a lot of supplements. So this was made in a GMP lab, and we have what is it, like ISSA certification or something like different. There's like different certifications, and they kind of carry a lot of weight, but at the same time, like I believe I've heard you say, and I've read this other places too, that it's like some of these certificates, you like, they're not actual tests. You can just pay for them. You can just pay for them. So what I'm asking is, like, what is the certification or the test or the thing I'm looking for to know that this supplement company is so confident in the quality of their product that they tested it and they have the documentation to show it, and this documentation is by a third party or by an internal party that can say, yes, this supplement is the thing it says it is, it's this quality, it's gone through this rigorous thing, and we stand behind it that it's good.
Oh, Eric, you literally have brought up the rock in the hard place, because this is where consumers are going to have it really hard. Whereas people like you and me who are practitioners that specialize in this kind of topic are going to have it easier. Because this topic that you just brought up is huge. Here is the truth. The best way to be able to test product is with something that is known as third-party testing. This is when a company sends all of their end product. So basically, when you make a product that is a lot or a batch, right? So everything in this one product that is made at this one time has a lot number on it. And it's all made from the same raw ingredients and goes through the same process on the same manufacturing equipment. So what you do as a supplement company is you take one bottle from that lot and you send it to a standardized lab for third-party testing. Now, not all labs are standardized. Some of them, you know, they use some pretty unethical practices. But if a supplement company has a contract with a standardized lab that uses standardized methods in order to test the end product, those are the kind of companies that you want to find, that you want to source from. Is there an easy way for consumers to be able to tell that? No, because this is literally something that companies do on their own. Now, you mentioned all of those verification stamps. And as you mentioned, companies have to pay big friggin' bucks in order to even participate in those verification stamps. And to be blunt, those verification stamps, they are not regulated like a standardized lab. So a standardized lab has specific regulations it has to adhere to as far as its testing and procedures in order to be standardized. So third-party testing with standardized labs are regulated. These verification stamps are not. So any aspect of the verification stamp can change at any time. And if you look at, it's kind of like following the money, except in this case, you're following the employees. So if you look at the employment history of who is at the top or sitting on the board of those verification stamp programs and making the big decisions and where they used to work, typically the decisions that are being made to regulate that verification stamp are only benefiting the biggest businesses, and the prices to participate in those verification stamps match that, because the truth is most consumers are very and I hate to say this, this is not a criticism, it's just true. They're really misinformed and they're ill-informed and they're naive. They don't know any different. So they're looking at these verification stamps thinking they mean something, when in reality, a lot of them are just, they're a way for the largest companies to look like they're higher quality than they are. And I hate to say that, but it is true, because the way that they are run and what they are basing things on usually has more to do with catering to supporting the profitability of the few and making the smaller companies that specialize unable to even compete in this market.
Right. So basically these giant authoritative organizations, you know, kind of make it so that they, like, people perceive them as the authority, whatever the organization is, and their stamp holds a lot of weight to an end consumer. An end consumer doesn't know the difference. Again, not an insult to the end consumer. It's just, it's the same way you look at, like, if you go to like a, if there's like a, you know, if there's like a health speaker, right? And they're like, oh, this guy's been on NBC and CBS, and they might be like, yeah, you know what's great? Canola oil. Frying canola oil is fantastic. And they're like, yeah, he's been on NBC, so he knows what he's talking about. And you know, we see all those people, right?
Yes.
So it's like the same thing. Here's a fun analogy. When I was doing comedy up in New England, I was doing comedy with this guy who his main credit was that he was on the David Letterman show. Okay, so I hate to date myself here, but he was on the David Letterman show, and you know, he would get booked and he'd get paid to do comedy, and everybody was like, but the deep dark secret was he was on the David Letterman show for the guy doing the stupid human dog tricks or something. So he wasn't even doing comedy on the Letterman show. It was like he was just a guy who was on there one time, and they're like, you know, he can juggle stuff with off his nose or something, and it has nothing to do with, but it's the perception. It's the perception that people have. So yeah. So I know you can go real deep into this.
Can I speak to something really quickly that I want to bring up? So one of the things that you mentioned were the good manufacturing practices. And I want to speak to that for a second, because getting the good manufacturing practice stamp on a product is something that costs an F ton of money. I mean, a literal F ton of money to be able to get that stamp. Right. If you are manufacturing supplements in the United States, you are required by law to follow the good manufacturing practices. So just because a company does not have that stamp on the label does not mean it's a crappy company, because every company is required by law to follow those practices. So don't be fooled by companies who are like, we have the good manufacturing practices stamp of approval. You have the money to have the good manufacturing practices stamp of approval, but I bet you anything that if I turn over your product and I look at the label, it is going to be full of excipients, and the majority of the nutrients in your product are going to be synthetic and artificial and made from corn and soy. I hate to say it, But it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that makes me think there's these girls that sell herbal products at a farmer's market that I go to here in Puerto Rico. And I mean, they're just they it's a farm. It comes from a farm
Yeah.
here. Everything grows in Puerto Rico. It's I mean, organic. It's everything that you would ask for. It's I mean, they distill it by hand. There's no machines in it, but
Mhm.
they don't have a GMP label, you know, but
Yeah.
their product is 100 times more pure and better than 90% of the stuff that's at GNC.
Yeah.
So
So that's such a great example, Eric. I mean, it makes you realize that what's really important is talking to the people who are making these products. Another example is one of our colleagues, Rachel Alm, has a company known as Open Road Botanicals. And she also makes all of her products by hand. She like wild harvest things. I mean, this is very intentional work. But if you talk to her, you find out that before she even started making her products, she did research to find out, what do I legally need to do to make sure that I am adhering to the good manufacturing practices for these products?
yeah,
Now, what's tricky is that something at the farmer's market, like what you were talking about, that would probably be classified as a food, because it is something that is being sold at a farmer's market, and it's an edible, whereas Rachel's products are literally categorized as a supplement. And there are different laws regarding the manufacturing and processing and making of food versus supplements. So that could be coming into play too. Is it a food or is it a supplement?
yeah. And the line there, it's like, is it food? Is it supplement? Is it a drug? And
Yeah.
that's where like the legality and the FDA and the USDA and all these,
Yes.
that's where it starts getting real crazy.
Yeah.
I did actually want to go back because I think that was fantastic talking about that, and I know we could probably talk for 2 hours about that stuff easily.
2 days.
Easily. But it makes me think about fish oil
Yeah.
because I've heard you talk about this before, and I never really put it together. And in the nootropics world, fish oil is very popular because it's like it's the omega-3s, it's the EPA, the DHA, it's all these good brain healthy things, and that's what nootropics are. We're here to help your brain, right?
Yeah.
But fish oil is a super slimy
Yep.
industry, and I
Yep.
think and the way that you explain it, I think is the best kind of reason why I personally don't take fish oil. But if I did, there is a way to find out if your fish oil is good or not. So I was hoping you could share that.
Oh my gosh. I have to be honest with you. There's so many different things that I speak to about fish oil. Can you give
So
me a
I've
little
heard,
bit of context about what specifically you're remembering that you're like, yeah, when Kate explained it this way, that was just like epiphany moment.
right, I kind of set you up. I was like, hey, do you remember that thing you said that I remember, but you don't? Um, this is the first episode of this podcast. We're still learning how to do these things. So, okay, so maybe it wasn't you who said this, but the idea of fish oil is basically to make fish oil, you have to catch a fish.
Yes.
Okay. And let's just start there.
Okay.
The ocean is a
The
toilet,
fish.
right? You got to catch a fish.
Unfortunately, at this point, most of it is yes.
Right. You got to catch a fish out of an ocean that's basically a toilet.
Yes.
Then you have to pull the fish onto the boat.
Mhm.
And as soon as the fish leaves the water, it's dying. So
Yes.
the fish is dying, right?
Yep.
Okay, we're okay with that because we eat dead fish anyways, right? But
it's dead when we eat it,
right,
or at least one would hope it is.
right, unless you're like a sea otter and you're just a savage. But so the fish is dying, and then I'm just assuming at some point the fish is fully dead, and then the boat goes back to the shore and it's got dead fish, And the fish, once they're dead, begin to oxidize on the boat. So it's just
Mhm.
becoming more and more decrepit. And if it's made of, it's basically like a fatty fish. It's made of fat, so it starts to oxidize. And if it
Mhm.
becomes oxidized, it essentially becomes toxic
And
and
rancid, because the
rancid.
fats
Yep,
are rancidifying. Yeah.
they're acidifying, yeah. And so, and then from there, the fish goes to the factory, and then the rancidified, oxidized fish gets processed and turned into oil. So it's not like you're eating like fresh fish oil. You're eating fish oil of a dead fish that could have been dead. I mean, who knows how long, right? I mean, you would
Yes.
hope it's not that long, but I'm sure in some instances it's been dead for a long, long time. And if you're and basically what you're eating is you're eating the oxidized, rancidified fat of a dead fish. Um,
Well, do you mind
and
if I jump in here? Because you're missing a very important step.
oh, please, yeah.
Okay.
There was like
So
more steps in my step, but go ahead. Yeah.
So the oils are derived from that fish, and they're separated from the fish meal. And fish meal is used in a lot of things, mostly pet food, right? So or feed for things that we eat. So the oil is a byproduct of the fish meal industry, and they don't have any use for it. So what they do is they actually put it in 50-gallon drums, and they store it, this fish oil,
They just
in
store the oil.
50-gallon drums. And it's like you were saying, we need to think about from the time that a fish is caught and it is sitting in even a refrigerator. Okay, I mean, you can freeze fish and that will preserve it for a period of time, but if it is sitting at room temperature in a warehouse in a 50-gallon drum, or even if it's a refrigerated warehouse in a 50-gallon drum, how long does it take for fish to go rancid or go bad when it's in a refrigerator? Let's think about that for a second.
I mean, it
How
doesn't
many
take a
how
long
many
time.
days?
I,
Yeah,
I would
like a few
imagine
days,
a couple
right?
days. Yeah.
A few days. This is sitting there for months,
Months.
Eric.
Yeah.
Months. And as you spoke to, the ocean at this point is a toilet. I mean, it's so toxic. It has all the PCBs and BPAs and xenoestrogens from like the plastics that are floating everywhere. It has radiation in it. It has how many oil spills and the chemicals that they've actually added to the ocean in order to try to emulsify the fat of the oil into the ocean. So you've got this chemical shitstorm.
Yeah.
And the fish are absorbing all of that their entire life as they're growing up in it. So there are all these toxins that are naturally present in the fish oil, because every being, whether it is a plant or a insect or a mammal or a living being of any kind, stores toxins in the fat. That's where they're stored.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this fish oil that is rancid and full of toxins. And then companies will buy that and they will encapsulate it and sell it to you,
Mm-hmm. And then
consumers.
right. And then there's like the actual process, right, of the encapsulation, right, where it's something with
Mhm.
the esters and then like a backbone and then
Oh, well, okay. So that's a little bit of a different topic, because what you're talking about is so there are some companies out there that recognize that the fish oil is filthy and dirty and not safe for human consumption when it's like that. And the way that you can tell whether or not your fish oil is safe for human consumption, and consumers, you are not going to like this, but it is true. And think about it, because if you're eating fish, you can tell when it's bad. You can taste it. And when it's bad, your body is like, ugh, I should not be eating this.
mm-hmm.
The same is true of fish oil. First of all, fat digestion starts in the mouth, which means any fats that we are consuming, we should not be swallowing. And this goes for fat soluble vitamins too. You should be chewing them up. So any fat soluble products or any fatty acid products, you should be chewing them up. And if they don't taste good to you and you want to spit them out because they taste like they're bad, you should listen to that, because your body is telling you the truth of that product.
And
So,
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but just to make
yeah.
sure, because maybe some people listening might not know what you mean. Fat soluble vitamins,
Oh
vitamin
yeah,
A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin
vitamin
K, right?
K. Yes,
Right. Okay.
exactly. So, so that's part of the reason why in my practice, I only use fat soluble vitamins that are actually in their natural liquid form. I don't use the dry forms, because I tell everyone you should be chewing this up and you should be taking it with a meal, because these fat soluble nutrients are naturally occurring in food, and that is when we should be taking them and starting the breakdown process to make the nutrients bioavailable by chewing them up and emulsifying them fully in our mouth. And the same thing is true of the fatty acid products. So a lot of the plant-based fatty acid products, the main reason why people don't want to chew those up is because most of the ones on the market are actually derived using chemical solvents like hexane, and there are little to no regulations on the amount of chemical solvent residue that is allowed in the end products. So when you chew up the plant-based oils, you're going to taste chemicals, and it's like it burns and it doesn't taste good and it doesn't feel good in your mouth. If that's what it's doing to the mucosal membrane of your mouth, what do you think it's doing all the way through the mucosal lining of your entire digestive system? It is causing damage. So this is where chewing up your fatty acid products really comes in handy. Now, going back to the fish oil, because I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, Eric, so if you need to stop me or refocus me, go for it, because as you know, I can talk about this for days.
No, it's good. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Okay.
This is really good stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So with fish oils, we need to keep in mind that, you want it to taste like nothing more than fresh fish. Now, it's going to be very concentrated fresh fish, because it is the oil that is derived from the fish. So it's like concentrated, pungent, fresh fish. If it tastes like anything different than fresh fish, if you taste the chemical solvents, if you taste that it's bad, like it tastes like bad fish, you spit that out, that is not a high quality product. Now, there are companies that try to go the extra mile when it comes to fish oil. And oh my gosh, Eric, this is where it gets really complicated, because there is a process. So you have to de-rancidify the oil. You have to deodorize the oil. You also have to put the fish oil through a bunch of processes to remove the different toxins. Now, the way that happens is if you look at an omega-3 fatty acid, there is what's known as the triglyceride backbone. And then there's these little ethyl esters that come off of the triglyceride backbone. And the toxins are actually trapped in between where the ethyl esters connect to the triglyceride backbone.
And the ethyl esters are part of the natural product?
Yes, the ethyl esters are part of the omega-3. So the omega-3 is literally a triglyceride background with 3 ethyl esters. That's what makes it an omega-3. 1, 2, 3 ethyl esters. So in order to actually remove the toxins from this fish oil, you have to break the bond between the triglyceride backbone and the ethyl ester, so that you can remove the toxins that lie in between that bond. Now, the trouble is, while there are companies out there that have the technology to be able to break that bond and remove the toxins, they don't have the technology to reattach the ethyl ester correctly to the triglyceride backbone. And we have to remember, an omega-3 fatty acid is literally a triglyceride backbone with 1, 2, 3 ethyl esters. That is how our body molecularly recognizes what it is.
Mm-hmm.
When you break that bond and you only have the ethyl esters without the triglyceride backbone and they're not attached, your body will be like, what the he and aha is this, and what am I supposed to be doing it with it? Because you don't have the full molecule. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
You only have part of the material that your body needs. So the extremely specialized companies, so first of all, there are companies out there that just sell the ethyl esters, and they think that, you know, oh, this is such a great thing because it means that you're actually getting a clean product, and you are, but the problem is it is not bioavailable.
Is that because there's no triglyceride backbone?
Yeah, that is because the
Gotcha.
ethyl esters are not attached to the triglyceride backbone. You need the whole kit and caboodle in order to be able for your body to recognize it and use it the way that it needs to.
Mm-hmm.
So there are companies that go the extra mile, and they are very far and in between, that will be able to have the technology to reattach the ethyl esters to the triglyceride backbone after removing the toxins.
Wow. And there's not many that do that, I assume.
No, there really aren't. Like, there was one company that specialized in it, but they got bought out by a big corporation, and they were very, very hush-hush about it. And they kept saying that they were doing the same things because there are no legal parameters to keep supplement companies from saying that they are doing things that they're not doing. But you could literally taste the difference. Like, the product went from being one of the cleanest products on the market to tasting like bad fish all the time. Wow. I mean, it was disgusting. And you could taste the toxins in it too. I mean, it was clear that they were not doing what they were saying that they were doing. It was really disappointing. So since that time, it's taken me about almost 7 years to finally be able to track down a company that I really like and trust. But I will be blunt. I tend not to take the fish oil products. I try to source and derive what I'm getting from food. Like, I will specifically order from my supermarket Icelandic cod that is shipped in, because the fishing around the Iceland waters in, far North Sea, that's going to be some of the cleanest waters that are still existing on the planet. So I try to source a lot of my seafood from there if I'm going to eat it at all.
Yeah. I'll tell you, one of my most favorite foods I have is Icelandic cod livers.
Yeah, I know,
like
right?
The straight cod livers.
Yeah.
And for all the people out there who are like, hey, I heard cod liver oil is great. I guess, maybe, probably not, according to, what we just heard.
Exactly.
But you are guaranteed to get all the benefits of cod liver oil by just eating the cod livers, and you can get them on Amazon. And I love the taste of them. Maybe it's not for everybody. I would imagine it's probably not for everybody, but I think you get that, and then you get all the oil in it. So you could, what I do is every day just take a little spoon of that oil, and then I throw the other stuff on, and you get it's so much vitamin A and all omegas and all that stuff.
And the other great thing about the cod livers is that, as I know you already know, Eric, but some of the consumers might not, is that the difference between fish oil and cod liver oil is the EPA to DHA ratio. So most likely in the nootropic realm, I would assume that a lot of people are going more for the cod liver oil over the fish oil, because the DHA is what's known to be most brain boosting. Am I understanding that right? I don't know, because I'm not part of the nootropic world, but I assume that if people actually know what they're friggin' talking about, that they would be going for the DHA rich cod liver oil. Is that right?
I would imagine. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like the way I hear about it is like, kind of like in the overall grand scheme of like getting omega threes, you know,
Huh,
which
but they're not necessarily making the distinction between the fish oil and the cod liver oil and how
I'm,
one is higher in DHA?
you know, it from what I don't speak for everybody
Okay,
in the nootropics world. Don't get me wrong.
that's
Um,
true.
in fact, the whole reason that like this site exists is because I find the typical nootropic conversation to be so frustrating.
Yeah,
Where like exactly what we're talking about, trying to isolate
yes,
nutrients
yep,
to kind of hack
yes,
to hack your brain, versus like what I'm about is getting like the full food form of it,
exactly.
and really, taking a holistic approach. So that's why I love the
Yes.
idea of, I'm not going to go to Costco. I'm not going to buy a bottle of fish oil pills when I
Oh,
can just go a couple rows back and get sardines,
yeah,
or get
exactly.
salmon or whatever.
Yep.
Um, so, uh, and then you have like the whole kind of what DHA to EPA thing. Just eat the full fish.
Yeah,
That's what I think. It's
I
and
agree.
then it's like at the same time, if you're trying to hack too much of one thing, you're probably going to throw something else out of
Yes.
proportion. So, you know, and then there's like the whole thing of
So true.
genetics. It's like, does your genetics even say that you can make the conversion? Is it
Yeah.
EPA to DHA or whatever? Some people can't do that. You have plant-based. It's too
Oh,
complicated,
I
So
know. And you brought up, oh my gosh, there were so many things in what you were saying that I was just like, ah, yes, because, and this is something that a lot of people are unwittingly doing to themselves in the paleo and the keto world, is that they are all about omega-3, 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 and omega-6 is bad. And what you and I understand as functional nutritionists is that that is not actually true. You need to have a balance between the omega-6 and the omega-3 in the body, because the omega-6 makes the PG1
Mhm.
anti-inflammatory prostaglandin, and the omega-3 makes the anti-inflammatory PG3 prostaglandin. So you need both in your body. You need the PG1 and the PG3. And most people who are paleo and keto are deficient in the omega-6s. Like, I can't count the number of clients that I have done functional testing with, and their body is so deficient in the omega-6s because they've been vilified and people think that they're bad, when in reality we need them, but
Right.
we need them in balance. The problem is when people are cooking with those plant derived oils, because we were never meant to do that. We were never meant to do that. We are meant to be getting them from our food, and that means our nuts and our seeds and things like that, that are the wonderful omega-6 rich sources of
Yeah,
those
I agree.
beneficial oils.
I totally agree. Look, this has been amazing. I know that we could easily keep this
I
conversation
know.
going for a few more hours, but and we've barely scratched the surface with
I
what all
know.
the stuff I wanted to talk about. But this was amazing. I know if you're just listening to this, if you've listened all the way through, you probably know more about supplements than 90% of the people
True.
who are going to GNC and buying supplements at Walgreens, at Costco, and Walmart. But I'd love to have you back, Kate, whenever you can do it, to talk more about different supplements. I know anybody who's listening is probably going to be looking for you to get, if not to see what you got out there for content, maybe even have you coach them, or maybe
Yeah.
even, take a course that you have. Where can people find you? Where do you want to direct people listening to stay in touch with you?
So my business is Academy of Professional Supplement Certification, also known as Academy of PSC. I do offer consultants, or I do offer consults about supplements for both practitioners or consumers with a signed disclaimer. I want people to be able to make informed choices about their supplements. So this is not necessarily me telling you what is going to be the right supplement for you, but more helping to provide people with information to be able to make the best choices for themselves and their family when it comes to quality and efficacy. And I do have a supplement course known as the Verified Supplement Practitioner course, and that is for functional practitioners. But something that is kind of on the back burner right now is eventually there will be some courses available for consumers. So if you want to be able to learn more about a particular supplement like herbs, there's going to be a little mini course available for between $10 to $20 so that you can make sure that you can source good quality herb products.
That would be awesome. That would be,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be awesome. And I hope people search you out and find more information on that, because, you know, for 10, $20, it can make a profound difference in your health and your buying decisions, and you could save so much money and
Yeah.
not buy crap, and make your body use it better. That's really what we're here for, is to help people really be able to use nutrition and use supplementation to get the most out of it. So
Exactly. And that's what's most important to me, is making sure that this information is accessible to people and can legitimately benefit people. But I also understand that, you know, the $10 to $20 might be something that not everyone has, which is why I like to do podcasts with people like you, Eric, so that there is information out there for free too. It's like my way of being able to give back.
yeah, that's amazing. And we're so grateful to have you, Kate. Thanks so much for joining me here. And I know we'll have you back, and we'll continue this conversation
It's
and keep
great.
educating people.
All
So
right.
thanks so much, Kate. This was a pleasure. And dear listener, if you enjoyed this, please go check out Kate's course, or you can head on over to holisticnootropics.com for more information and to find out more information on all the different supplements, nootropics, and nutrients. Take care. Peace.